The story of Kakashi Hatake is told by Darius the Green Angel. So a long time ago in the Naruto-verse, Kakashi was born. He had a father named Sakumo Hatake. This guy was known as the White Fang of the Leaf. And he did shit, Kakashi looked up to him because his father was a ninja. And, that motivated Kakashi to do well in school, right? And eventually Kakashi, promised, they evaluated him and they were like, this kid is actually pretty damn good. At age, 6, 7 years old, they saw Might Die and they saw a guy. And Kakashi noted that guy was, not the best. But he was like, guy told him, he was like, hey, one day I'm going to surpass you, even if it takes a long time, and his dad told him, he was like, watch out because that guy, might actually catch you one day. So you got to keep, doing your shit. And Kakashi stayed with it. He made sure he was on his P's and Q's, outclassing everybody in like ninjutsu, taijutsu, knowing how to, complete missions, and he didn't cause the superiors and everything else, the ninja code and everything else. But his father ended up killing himself because he was a ninja, right? That was, respected and everything else, right? He didn't complete a mission because he went back to save his, comrades. And the people in the Leaf saw that as a weakness. Like, you didn't complete your mission because you wanted to go back and save your comrades. That's a weak trait in a shinobi. That's not a part of the shinobi creed or anything. You don't do shit like that. You complete the mission no matter what. And then he ended up killing himself because he didn't want to deal with all that. But then, Kakashi kind of grew towards, not being like that and, like really sticking on his shit, for real. I have to make sure I'm the best shinobi, and if I have to, not save somebody for the sake of the mission, like one of my comrades doesn't hold up their part of the, they can't hold their own weight during a mission, then that's on them. I have to complete the mission. That's the number one goal. So he continues and he eventually becomes a Jonin like his sensei, Minato. Minato was a sensei, for a little bit, and eventually he went on to become the 4th Hokage. But before that happened, it was a Third Great Ninja War, and he was in a team with, Kashi was in a team with Rin and a boy named Obito. Obito was kind of like Guy, but even Guy was better than he was, as far as being a Genin ninja goes. He never passed the Chunin exam, so he was kind of, he's kind of like Naruto in a way. Kakashi was a little bit more like Sasuke, but even more of a prodigy because, like, he was a Jonin at age 12. It was the day that Kakashi got to do a mission by himself because Minato was needed on the battlefield elsewhere. Kakashi was like, okay, well, I'm going to take Rin and Obito and I'm going to, complete this mission because, they now trust me to be actually an elite shinobi, and they have to listen to me and they can't, talk back to me or anything. So if I say do this, they have to do this. And, he's like, yes, but you have to also, it's more to it than that. And it's not an easy job, as Minato was telling him, because Minato has the experience of being a Jonin because he had been a Jonin longer than Kakashi. But he was like, keep this on you, it might come in handy. It's his kunai that has the tag of the Flying Rajin on it. So he kept that on him and he was like, okay. They went into the woods and then eventually Rin got captured by Stone Shinobi. But Obito was like, we gotta go back for Rin. That's a member of this team. You can't say that she don't mean anything to you or anything like that. And Kakashi's like, well, that might be true, Obito, but we have to complete the mission first. That's the priority. she got herself caught being careless. We have to move forward. Obito was like, no, we have to, go back for her, because guess what? I looked up to your father a little bit. It's true that you're scum if you don't follow the rules, the Shinobi code and everything else, but you're worse than scum when you don't go back to, help a comrade out when you can. And he's like, Obito left, and then Kakashi was just like, damn, thank you.
God bless you, bro.
Yep, God bless you too. He's like, God damn, I guess I have to go after this guy, because I know he can't fight without me. And eventually he was just like helping Obito fight against those stone shinobi. And they ended up defeating them. However, the cave was booby-trapped, and Rin was on the Genjutsu. He took her out of Genjutsu. Kakashi did. They were running, and then Obito got crushed by a rock. And one side was, crushed, and, that was foreshadowing for who their, future enemy would be, or who his future enemy would be, really. Because, damn, this is going to be a long story time. He went on to take Obito's eye as a gift, because everybody gave him a gift. Rin gave him the medical kit. Minato gave him the flying Rajin kunai that he uses, a special one that's a little bit heavier than the other ones. And then Obito was like, take my eye, and I'll always be with you and shit. And he had the Obito's eye, and that's when he started to get the moniker of Copy Ninja from that day forward, because he was able to copy people's ninjutsu with that eye. But Minato came to save Rin and Kakashi. Kakashi later, around like a couple months later, he ended up going to the Mist Village because they had kidnapped Rin. See, she had become the Three Tails host of the Three Tails Jinchuriki. It was inside of her. She became the Three Tails host for a little bit, and they were going to set her loose on the village. Kakashi went to pick her up, but then they were surrounding her, the Mist Anbu, and he was outnumbered. He had no choice but to kill her, because if she run around and went crazy, then the Three Tails would have been, on the loose, and he couldn't have did anything about that. So he killed her, and then Obito was in wait, but he didn't know about that. He had no idea, but he ended up going back to the village, and because his teammates ended up dying, he was kind of on a dark. He was kind of still processing all that shit. And then also, his sensei also ended up, becoming Hokage. So he was like, the team's not anymore, so I might as well join the Anbu Black Ops. He was in the Anbu Black Ops. He taught Itachi how to do things in the Anbu, how to be secretive, how to, complete missions and not be caught, not be seen, because the Anbu, they are, Black Ops. These people are not known. They're not seen. These are Foundation members ran by a guy named Danjo Shimura, and he even put Kakashi under certain, genjutsu, so he wouldn't, run around and say too much. But eventually he got out of that job, and, his sensei ended up dying during the Nine Tails attack, that being Minato Namikaze, and then he sealed the Nine Tails within his son. And then years later, Kakashi becomes Naruto's teacher. And that's when Naruto begins, the series. And Kakashi's like, what do you guys want to be? What are your goals, towards the future and everything else? Introduce yourselves. And they said, Sakura was into Sasuke, and Sasuke was into, getting revenge on Itachi, and Naruto was, of course, trying to become a Kage. Kakashi was like, you guys will try to get these bells from me. It's a test to see how well you work together and how well you'll be. But if you can't get these bells, you won't become Genin. You'll go back to the school. They couldn't get the bells. They put them in the genjutsu, put these ninjutsu that they couldn't overcome. They couldn't do it. He tied Naruto to the post because he was a guy who was impulsive back then. Tied him. And he was like, oh my God, I need to eat. They're like, oh yeah, you need to eat. But you can't eat because you were doing too much. Attacking me when I told you not to and other things. You have to wait till it starts. They still fed him, and then he came back and was like, you know what, you guys still pass because you can't turn your back on comrades, even though, the mission's there, you can, still save your comrade and still complete the mission. He remembers his old friends and shit that had died and shit. That's why he wanted to teach that and keep that in his, lessons and shit. And so then they had a mission to go to the Land of Waves, right? They go to take the shipbuilders to the Land of Waves so they could build the Great Naruto Bridge. Well, come to the Great Naruto Bridge, he takes them there. He defeats these assassins along the way because Naruto and Sasuke and Sakura are still inexperienced at this point. Zabuza Momochi shows up and he has to fight Zabuza. He defeats Zabuza and then Haku shows up and picks him up. Then again, he trains them in the woods to run up trees. Kakashi trains Naruto and Sakura, and Sakura took to it easily. But Naruto and Sasuke had to sit out there and, learn how to run up the tree. Because they're, putting chakra in their feet. So he did that. Then, a couple days later, or a day later, we're finally on the bridge with Zabuza Momochi again. And, it's harder because he's now worried about his students, too, because Haku's there, too. And Haku's a more experienced ninja than all of them are. So he was, watching them while he's fighting Zabuza, which he could beat Zabuza under other conditions, but in that sense he has his students, he's kind of making sure they're alright too. A little bit worried about him a little bit. But he does end up, getting, Zabuza caught by that Fang Pursuit Jutsu that he uses. Boom, 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 those dogs fucking bit him and he's like, oh fuck. Then he had him on Chidori. He killed Haku instead because Haku came to him like a shield. They found out, Haku Zabuza actually did have feelings for Haku. Eventually he killed Gato, the person he was working for, and then they left and they buried, Haku and Zabuza. Their shit was there in the Land of the Waves, and then they went back. Kakashi was, sitting back during the Chunin exam. He let his students do what they had to do. He had to help Sasuke out during the prelims because he defeated the guy he was fighting, right? But then he had to suppress Orochimaru's curse mark. Orochimaru was like, I can't suppress my curse mark. You're not powerful enough to, do shit like that. You can only do so much for that boy. He'll still sleep my power. And he was like, I won't let that happen, That also, put in his head, let me, teach this boy the Chidori going into the next, the actual rounds of the actual tournament, which would, have him fight Gaara. So he's training, Kakashi's training Sasuke and Chidori, and it took a couple of days. But during that time, Gaara tried to attack, but he was out there and he was like, yo, you can't be attacking my fucking student. You'll have to wait until the day that you're supposed to fight. And they get there a little late, but then Sasuke ends up fighting and he uses Chidori and he was proud. But then Konoha Crush happens, third Hokage is fighting Orochimaru, but Kakashi's fighting Sand and Sound Shinobi at the same time because they're working together because of Orochimaru's plan. They had been fooled and other things. So they're doing that, and then everything was said and done. They found out their Hiruzen had died. And then Itachi enters the village after that, catching wind of that shit. And he's like coming to see Sasuke, but also to find Naruto because he's an Akatsuki member. So Kakashi gets there and he tells Asuma and Kurenai to not look into Itachi's eyes because he's dangerous. He's not your average shinobi. And he remembers Itachi from the Anbu days. And he was his superior in the Anbu when he was teaching some shit. But Itachi was a different guy by then. And Kakashi learned the hard way because he got put under Tsukuyomi and he was fucked up in the hospital for a while. He was, boys. Don't fucking lie and shit. He was in the hospital for a while. Lady Tsunade came and then, treated him. Sasuke got treated too, but Sasuke went down that path for power, for revenge against his brother, who he didn't know shit about. He had not known why Itachi did what he did yet. People forget that. But I don't forget that part. So he's going to Orochimaru for power and shit. And then, Kakashi's like, damn, I'm gonna go and try to save these boys because they had already left. Shikamaru said, I'll take a group of guys who can go save Sasuke. We can probably, get him back. And they were all like, yes, we can get him back. But they came up short, and Kakashi grabbed Naruto and took him back to the village to get recouped by Tsunade. Then Naruto went on his journey, and Kakashi was in the village just doing jobs as he usually does, as he's the best Jonin in the league. Then they come back 2.5 years later, and then Sasuke's there, or not Sasuke, goddamn, Naruto's there. Sakura's there, and then he's like, show me what, Kakashi's like, show me what you've learned in the past 2 years. They start, showing him what they've learned, and then he's like, yes, they definitely improved. He's seen it and everything. Shadow Clone Jutsu, Rasengan, Sakura's hitting off, brute strength moves, hitting the ground and like making earthquakes, essentially, small earthquakes, and then breaking trees with her hands, and then, not falling for the genjutsu and shit like she did when she was a younger kid. They ended up getting the bells, and then he was like, okay, we'll have to go on this mission because Gaara's in trouble. So he goes with them, and Chiyo is in the sand village, and Granny Chiyo seen him and was like, you look like the white fanged leaf. He's like, no, that's my father. He died a while back. And she's like, oh, no wonder you look like him, but you ain't. Now that I look at you closer, you're not him. And he's like, yeah, of course. And then he goes on, and then he finds Itachi's, 30% clone. They thought it was actually Itachi, though. But this time, when Kakashi comes up on Itachi, or his 30% clone, he has the foresight to be like, okay, I'll hide in the ground and use my clone. And my clone will look right into his eye. And then Itachi found out. He was like, oh, that's just a clone. He's like, yeah, of course. I wouldn't look into your eyes anymore. Not after the shit you did to me, those years ago. Naruto ended up, hitting that clone and destroying it. It was a 30% clone, but it was also impersonation jutsu. So it actually was somebody else, in disguise. Or putting on the facade, I was shocked. But they break into the cave where they're sealing away Shikaku out of Gaara, but Gaara is dead. Naruto gets upset and he goes after Deidara. Kakashi goes after Naruto because he understands Naruto could get caught too by the Akatsuki. He understands that Naruto could be caught by the Akatsuki and also that he could lose his mind. Jiraiya gave him a tag before they left. He says, if he goes into Three Tails mode, you have to use his fucking tag or he will lose himself completely and the Nine Tails power will take over because he'll take it on a form of the Nine Tails. He won't look like Naruto no more. he saw 3 tails. He said, "Oh damn, Naruto, you have to calm the fuck down." He put the tag on his head, and he went to sleep. Kakashi went back to sleep, but then he got sick. So then somebody had to fill his spot. That was Yamato. They go to the Tenchi Bridge. They had a confrontation with Sasuke, but Kakashi was not involved in any of that. Then some shit happened with Asuma, where Asuma went after these Akatsuki members because Shirku ended up dying. He was a Guardian Shinobi Tail member and a monk at a Buddhist temple and shit. And they said, yeah, we'll go there and we'll try to, fight these guys. They ended up biting off more than they could chew, but they had vital information from Shikamaru because Shikamaru ain't dumb. So, Kakashi was like, we can run shit with these guys again, but we have to, you have to run by the information you got from that final or that last battle you were in with them. And he was like, yeah, this guy, has a way to link, our bodies to his body, basically like a voodoo doll. Well, he'll take damage and he's immortal, so anything we do to him, he won't die. But the damage that he, the damage that he has, it will, come back on us. So if he cuts you and tastes your blood, then your bodies are linked, and he's the voodoo doll, and he stabs himself anywhere, that's on you. If he stabs himself in the heart, you're gonna lose your heart. You're gonna die, just like Asuma did. Then they didn't know anything about Kakazu, so they're running through the forest and they find these guys. Kakashi did manage to destroy one of Kakazu's hearts. Then he ends up fighting Kakazu while Shikamaru takes him to takes Hidan to the forest in an area where he knows, and has set up a trap for him. Shikamaru handles that part, but Kakashi's struggling against Kakazu because he has many hearts, and these hearts have different chakra. One beast or one heart has fire jutsu, one has lightning jutsu, one has water jutsu. Now Kakashi knows how to combat these things, but he's using a lot of chakra and shit, so he's kind of getting drained a little bit. And he almost got his heart taken too, but then Naruto showed up, and when Naruto showed up, at this point, this is when Naruto actually starts to, eclipse his sensei, Kakashi. He hits him with the Rasen Shuriken, and then it destroys him. But then Kakashi does have to come in and, kill the last heart, because his body's fucked up. He's too fucked up to move, but he's still alive, so it kills him with it, Chidori. Then, after that happens, they go on a mission to find Sasuke. They have the Sentry Ninja. They have the help of Kurenai's team. They have Shino and Kiba and Hinata, and they're all looking for Sasuke. They don't end up finding him. They end up finding Obito, or Toby, my bad, instead. And Kakashi starts questioning, this guy, Uchiha, he's starting to phase through shit, he's kind of thinking this shit's kind of similar to what I can do with the Mangekyo Sharingan, where I can warp somebody into a space, or I don't know where that goes, but this guy's trying to phase him through stuff. He starts having more questions about that guy, because from his knowledge, he only knew that the two were Itachi and Sasuke. And now him, which is Madara, or he thinks is Madara because he says so. But Kakashi is then in the Pain Invasion arc, and he's fighting and holding down while Naruto's in Mount Miyaboku. He comes up on the Tendo Pain, the main body, the one that has Yahiko's body, the one that has most of the power and shit, the Deva Path. And he's like, oh shit, let me try to kill this one. And he had help from Chosa and Choji, but they still couldn't defeat him. They learned that it takes 5 seconds for his powers to repel and pull things in, because he has to recharge and shit, because it's being powered by Nagato. Remember, he's somewhere else, and this guy is just a doll, a receiver, because he has the chakra receiver thing. So it takes 5 seconds for him to get back on his shit, so he can start hitting almighty push in the universal pull again. Kakashi ended up dying to him, but then he saw his dad in the afterlife, and he was talking with his dad for a little bit. Then Nagato ended up dying because he used Renny Rebirth, and he brought back Kakashi and Chosa and everybody else that had died. Kakashi is then considered for the Hokage position. However, head-ass Danzo is like, hey man, you forgot about me. I'm still here. These people are like, we'll consider Danzo for the position. He hasn't been here for a while. He's been, sitting around and fucking around, and he says that he wants to be Hokage. We'll allow him to take this position. And that's what they did. And they were considering Kakashi for the position too, because Tsunade was down. But Danzo was really making his voice loud, and they made him the stand-in Hokage for a little bit. However, that was short-lived because Kakashi, see how I came to 5 Kage Summit to do his get back. You forced my brothers to run around and kill people. So you could attach eyes to your fucking arm so you can become powerful. I'll fucking kill you, bitch. And that's what happened to Danzo's bitch ass. He got, ended. Kakashi gets to the bridge before Sasuke could kill Sakura. Now, Sasuke is, really power hungry at this point. He's just like, I want to get my power. I want to be powerful. I don't know. I'll burn this fucking village down. Danzo was just the beginning. And he kind of forgot what his brother did and shit. He was on a, I want to fucking destroy everything. The village and shit. That, tried to, make my brother do that. Made my brother do that. And that's what he was thinking this whole time. But Kakashi was like, yo, you used to be my student, but now I have to fight you like Orochimaru fought against Orochimaru. And he was fighting for a little bit, but then, Sasuke was more powerful at that point, even though his eyes were going blind. And then Naruto got there, and then, shit stopped for a little bit. Kakashi gets to be head of one of the companies in the 4th Great Ninja War. I think it's Company 5 or Company 4. And they're fighting against the 7 legendary swordsmen of the mist. One of them being Zabuza, who he fought before. And he was like, damn, Naruto grew up to be a great ninja and other things, and he learned some lessons from that battle that day. But you guys got to get sealed the fuck away. And then they were like, yes, you got to, kill us now because we're already dead. And he's like, yeah, we're going to make sure of that. But then, Kabuto was able to, turn them off and shit, and then, they were fighting. He had to, coordinate with some Nara clan members, people who knew Shirapara Shitsu, and, the Amanaka clan members who knew Mind Transfer Jutsu, and said, cool, and packed these niggas up. and after he did that, and cleaned those people out, those niggas out, he went and he he went and he found Naruto. And he was fighting with Naruto, and he was like, you've come a long way, Naruto. Now you have control of Kurama, I see, and all this other stuff. And this guy, this masked man, is obviously not Madara, because we got intel that the other guy is actually Madara, and it looks like him and everything, confirmed by Onoki himself, who's seen Madara in the past. And the 5 Kage were fighting against the real Madara, and then they were trying to figure out who this masked man was. Obito or Kakashi ends up sending Naruto to the Kame ward, where he's...
Do you mind just sitting in the chair for us? Yeah, thanks.
So they do that, right? And Naruto ends up breaking Obito's mask, and it's revealed that it's Obito, and he's like, this whole time I thought you were dead. For all these years, everybody thought you were dead, but you never came back to the village. He's like, I came back, but, I was the one who ran that shit with Sensei. He wanted to see Ren again and create that fake world where she exists and other things. And then he's like, Kakashi, you don't understand, you have to just let this happen, Then they had their own fight in the Kamui world. it was pretty good too. And Kakashi was actually doing pretty good against Obito for what it was. But Obito ended up going back to the actual world, and when he did that, he absorbed the Ten Tails, and he became the Ten Tails Jinchuriki. And after that, Kakashi was just like, damn. I tried to stop him and everything else. But then things happen. Nacho fights against him, and then he talks to him inside of his world, and he's like, yo, you don't have to do this. This is not what you want to do. That was never what you wanted to be. You allowed Madara to talk to you and manipulate you. You wanted to be Hokage just like me. And Obito was just, defeated at that point. Then Madara, was trying to use Obito to bring him back to life. And he actually did. Kakashi was trying to kill Obito too when he lost the Ten Tail. But Minato was like, no, don't do that. Obito was like, I was fooled, and everything else, Kakashi was like, damn, now Madara has the Ten Tails because Sasuke died, and Naruto died too because Madara pulled out the tail beast, pulled out the 9 tails. Then Kabuto healed up Sasuke. Was trying to heal Sasuke, but it was really hovering with it, brought him back with the chakra of his 2 sons, and then the sun seal and then the moon seal, so they could seal away Madara and pack him up pretty good. Kakashi got his eye gouged out, or really Obito's eyes gouged out, so he can go into the Kame world where Obito was and and get his fucking eyes back. Then with that, he hit the infinite Tsukuyomi, and then Obito was still alive, Kakashi was still there, and Sakura was still there basically because Sasuke uses Susanoo cloak to protect them from the infinite Tsukuyomi. And then they fought Kaguya. When they fought Kaguya, Obito died, and he was like, again, I'll give you my eyes, I'll give you both of them. And then Kakashi learned, for just, that moment, and then just for that moment, he learned, Susanoo, full body Susanoo, and Kamui shurikens. That came in handy to get her arms, from touching Naruto and Sasuke, because her arms she could have fucking killed them. Still, she was a fucking problem. Like, they couldn't beat her. They had 2 boxes. Like, they had to seal this bitch. They had to put 2 tags on the bitch. And keep her sealed away. And that's how, they defeated her. And Kakashi was just like, damn, my students are still fighting each other. And after everything was said and done, Kakashi became the 6th Hokage. As, he was the best Jonin in the Leaf. If you ask me, and, most Naruto fans know that. So it was inevitable that he was going to be that. And he was that for a while. Then Naruto became the Hokage. And he was like, I was just keeping the seat warm for you. I was going to be Hokage, Naruto. And then that's basically where it ended. And Kakashi retired and became a, instructor a little bit when he felt like it, But he, this Kakashi, he knows a lot of jutsu because he had the Sharingan. And even before he had the Sharingan, he was a great student, and he was a decent sensei, mostly towards Sasuke, and then towards Naruto as far as, reminding him that he has, further to go. When it was that time, he was like, you still have to master your Rasengan, to make it a jutsu that's yours, you know. And he's just a great ninja to have on your side, this guy. But that's the story of Kakashi Hatake as I know it. You know, he's a great ninja, you know, one of the best all-rounders in Naruto, if you ask me. So be cool, call in the corner, and I'll make another one too.